did I do my cold plunge? Did I do my language learning? All these little goals that I want to hit, make sure that they're in here. Am I
language
reading?
Learning?
Yeah, language learning.
What are you learning?
I'm not telling you.
Okay.
I'm learning how to speak female. No, I'm kidding. You better cut that one out.
I mean, how many of us, have recognized at some point in our life that we spend too much time on our own little personal device?
Right. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sgt Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Good morning. Thanks for being here.
All right, so it is going to be a packed new year, you guys. There's so many things happening. It is crazy. So we're going to start with the current events. There are so many. We had to pick one, and so we're going to pick the biggest, which is debatable. But for today, the biggest is going to be the earthquakes that are happening all over the world, not just in Japan, but all over the world. These earthquakes and tsunamis and storm surges are happening. So we're going to talk about that in the lens of mental health. Then we're going to talk about the new technology out there. So Jess was supposed to bring us a new app to help keep her accountable to her goals, but she found something else really cool that we're going to bring to you guys. Not going to share with you what it is, but it is pretty cool. I know a little bit about it, and so we'll discuss that when it comes to goal setting, one of the goals that you could do. Then we're going to talk about how your tool for your toolbox is going to be, how do you do backwards goal setting? So this is one of my favorites. I learned this in the military when you have to be somewhere at 08 in the morning, which is 8 a.m. for you civilians. How do you make sure that you get there on time? And so backwards planning is how you do that. And so we will take that same framework and apply it to goal setting, to the goals that we both set for this show last episode. Then we're going to go into the practical application where I'm going to actually lead Jess through one of those backward planning exercises. Did you do this in the Army, the backward planning?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Maybe.
The Army is so backwards. I would have thought for sure that you guys would have done this backward planning. Zinger!
Yeah. He's fasting, so he's going to be a little grumpy today.
I am, and I've already been in 2 meetings today, and I've got another one after this. So let's go. All right, Jess, well, let's get into, wait a minute.
Oh,
Casey's giving me the high sign, the cards. Okay. Yes. All right. You guys remember this from last week? The word teaser, random knowledge that Jess is going to try and use against me. Now, I think if Casey puts up the scoreboard, Jess got 1 point last week, but I actually think that I should have 3 points because before the camera even turned on, I got 3 of these. We're all in agreement that I got 3 correct. All right, so put 3 on the scoreboard for me, Casey.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
I'll give them to you because it was pretty epic. Okay.
I probably just got lucky. We'll find out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm randomly.
No. You shouldn't randomly do it. You should go from one end to the other. That way we don't double up on them.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
Okay. You're so smart. Okay.
Tag that.
I'm
going to make her wear a shirt that says "You're so smart" with an arrow pointing this way.
That's good. Not. Okay.
All right, here we go.
The word teaser random knowledge question of the day is, what goes at 4,000? We already did this. Sorry. So I must be grabbing from the wrong side.
You're grabbing from the wrong side. See, this is what I was trying to avoid. Just turn it upside down, maybe.
No. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to put a couple of these. Okay. Oh, this is greetings. Got it. Okay. So the random knowledge word teaser question of the day. There are billions and billions of stars in the universe. So why is there so much dark space in our night sky?
It's because the distance between the stars is so great. The universe is ever expanding. So as it expands out, you're creating more space between those stars. And the light that we're seeing from those stars is actually billions of years old. It's not actually like we turn on this light and I'm seeing it right now. I'm seeing it a billion years ago. So if somebody looked at the Earth right now from a distant star, if they looked at the Earth, they wouldn't see us today. They would see, I don't know, depending on how far they were, they could see like the 1940s, or they could see back in the Stone Ages or back during the pyramids. That's what they would see because it takes that long for the light to get from us to that distant station, whatever it is.
Okay, so what was your first answer?
Is it that the universe is ever expanding, creating more space?
Yeah. Okay, so the answer is there's a lot of space in space.
That was okay.
The density of stars in our Milky Way galaxy is comparable to having 4 honeybees randomly distributed across an area equal to the entire United States.
Yeah.
Good luck finding that honey. That's what it says. So that's a win for Q.
I think that counts, right? Okay. All right.
That counts.
All right.
That counts.
Casey is our judge.
Oh, we are on the record. We are never flipping this, and you are not asking me these questions because I'm too competitive and I'll lose.
All right, let's get back into it. Let's talk about something that is really serious, actually, which are these natural disasters that happen. So these happen all of the time. And so when we look at this natural disaster that's happening right now, it's cataclysmic. There are homes destroyed, people that die, infrastructure that is damaged. And it seems very raw and very real because it's happening right now. But when we take a little bit of a long-term look at this, these natural disasters happen all the time, all over the US. So the big one right now we're seeing is in Japan. And that caused storm surges in Hawaii and California with some damage. But there were probably over 100 other significant, which means 4.0 or above, earthquakes that happened throughout the world yesterday as well, or on the 1st, not yesterday, but on the 1st.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to add is by the time we air this, like a lot more is going to come out about that tsunami earthquake type things. And so we'll have more.
We'll start to get more information that comes out and see all these different places. And so if you guys Google search this real quick, you'll see a list of all these other earthquakes that happened and all this other devastation that happened. So here's what can happen during that time is that we see this devastation that happens over in Japan. And depending on where you live locally, that could trigger memories of a devastation that happened locally to you. So when all of this devastation is happening in Japan, that could trigger a response from the people living in Hawaii who see this storm surge, hear the sirens, see all of these emergency services ramping up. It could pick up from the fires that happened recently over there, right? They could start to feel that uneasiness because of that past trauma they experienced. The first thing I think of when it comes to this are locally what happened here are the mudslides that happened just north of us 3 years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago. There's a massive mudslide that happened and wiped out an entire town. It was a small mountain town. The town doesn't even exist. All of those houses, everything were completely buried. People were entombed. Like they couldn't even, the roads weren't passable. So that's what comes to my mind when I see these natural disasters that happen. That localized trauma happens to other people as well throughout the world. When a big disaster happens and you see it on the news, you read it, it can trigger that trauma that you've experienced in your own life that was localized to you. So what do we do when that happens, Jess? When we get triggered by a news event like that and it triggers some of our past trauma and our memories, what can we do just really quickly to work ourselves down or not get worked up?
Well, I think the first step is acknowledging that it's normal, right? Validating it. And especially now that we're talking about it, knowing you're not alone in feeling that. I'm not alone. You're not alone in feeling that. And that's your first step is like, okay, I'm not a crazy person. And then putting the tools to work that we've talked about here that you've learned in your own counseling, whether it's the RAIN technique, recognize, allow, investigate, nurture yourself, or stop, look, and listen, or grounding techniques, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can look back at so many other podcasts we've put out of these tools, or, really you can call up if it's getting concerning, your depression you're sinking into, or anxiety, you can call up a mental health provider, or look for grief groups. Like, I mean, that's kind of like a big step to take, but I guess like I would challenge you to, the first step to take is just nurture yourself, that you're not crazy, and that a lot of people are impacted the same way you might be.
It's good advice. So on a smaller scale of things that you can do, number one, Jess talked about just recognizing it. Like, hey, this is disturbing me, and that's okay. Just that right there. Like, hey, this is a little disturbing. It's bringing up some thoughts, feelings, and emotions for me, and that's okay. Number two, I would say before you talk to a counselor is just talk to one of your friends.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm really, really big on not putting it on social media, but phoning a friend, texting a friend and saying, hey, this stuff happened in Japan. I'm feeling a little weird about this because a couple of years ago, this happened to me, and it's bringing that up. Just being able to talk about that. And if it was something that was cataclysmic, like these natural disasters usually are, odds are there's other people in your sphere of influence that are experiencing this same thing, but they don't know how to express it. Or they're just like you, they're afraid to express it. Because what are people going to think? Because they may feel like, oh, I'm going crazy. I shouldn't feel this way. So if you can be bold, and you can take that first step and just talk to your sphere of influence. I'm not saying you have to talk to a group of people, but 2 or 3 people that you know and trust, your squad, and just say, hey, this is bothering me. And just being open and honest with them, you might be surprised on the responses that you get back, where it's probably going to be filled with compassion. It's probably going to be a couple people in your sphere of influence that say, hey, man, I'm struggling with that too. I'm glad you said something. Those are the type of responses I get from my core group of guys that I talk to, because we've established that kind of relationship. We've established that's the normal thing that we talk about. And it was not easy in the beginning, but now that we've been doing it for a while, that's just who we are. We talk about these things when they're bothering us. One of the things that my squad and I are dealing with right now, we're all getting older. And so weight gain is a huge issue, and muscle loss. And so we hold each other accountable to that. Hey, I'm feeling this sort of way because of the holidays and I ate too much pie or this or that. And so it's a safe place to talk about those things and share those struggles. And then you don't feel isolated and alone, which just makes your mental health worse when you isolate away, feel like you're the only one. It just compounds the issue. So the 2 things you can do, like Jess said, recognize what you're going through and that it's okay. Number 2, I would say you can go on our website and you can actually get some of these free tools that she just talked about. We have them available. You can download those and then bring that to your sphere of influence and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. Let's try this together. It seems odd and it seems weird at first, but you know what? So did walking when you first tried it. And you spent a couple years figuring that thing out. Could you imagine if you didn't? If you just crawled around for the rest of your life? Like, what the heck? Right? So it's going to be weird. It's going to be awkward. You're going to stumble, bump yourself, but it's okay. Don't give up. Keep trying. And eventually you'll get really, really good at it.
Yeah.
All right. So that is our current event that we wanted to share with you guys. Yeah. So really quickly, I wanted to share with you the goal setting app that I utilized, and then we'll get into Jess and the one that she's talking about. The one I used is Habit 360. It got good reviews. I read through it, thought, okay, this is what I'm going to use. Downloaded it, started using it. I knew I was going to hit a paywall eventually, but I hit it very quickly. You could only set 3 tasks or goals before you hit the paywall, which is okay. I still got to utilize it. But here's the thing that really bothered me. As soon as I set a goal and put an alarm in there, the app crashed. I was like, what just happened? So I tried it again. It crashed. I uninstalled, reinstalled, redid it. It crashed again. And I'm like, okay, something is not right. There's got to be something in the settings. So I went into the back end of the app. I looked through the settings, looked at the permissions, and there's a little permissions tab that you have to select in order for the alarm feature. So you can set goals, but if you want to set a time, you have to give the app a permission to be able to do that. So I had to manually go in and change that. Now, since I develop apps, I kind of understood what was going wrong so I could go in there and fix it. But for the average person, I could see, you just delete the app.
I would,
And just delete it. So that's something that they need to look at, is to make that permission automatic, like in a pop-up that says, hey, you must, if you're going to use this feature, you must select this switch.
And it takes you straight to it, so I don't have to look for it. Like
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You've got to make these things intuitive. I know I'm learning this stuff because I'm an app developer now. And so I see these things. That's the only reason I knew how to fix it. But my first reaction was delete it, download it, and move on. But I didn't. I fixed it. It works great if they could fix that one little thing. You hit the paywall after only doing 3 goals. And for me, I've got like 10. And I was like, okay, so I stick with the 3. I'm going to continue using it for those 3. But I got to be honest, I went back to my old school method, which is it's my journal right here. And because I have so many more goals that I want to hit, so many more little things. And so I just use this right here. I have a little chart for myself to track my goals daily because I know that I do my Bible study every day. And so I'm already in here. I can make sure I got the water intake. How did I feel about the food that I ate? Did I do my cold plunge? Did I do my language learning? All these little goals that I want to hit, make sure that they're in here. Am I reading?
Language learning?
Yeah, language learning.
What are you learning?
I'm not telling you.
Okay.
I'm learning how to speak female. No, I'm kidding. You better cut that one out. Okay. No.
I'll learn mansplaining.
Well, let me show you how to do that.
Sure.
I want to up my Spanish.
Oh, okay.
I know enough to get by, but I want to become more conversational. Yeah. So I want to spend 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening. I paid for an app. So I'm going to just do that little micro learning every single day.
Well, that's a great segue.
It is a great segue. I set you right up.
Yes. And so what I came across as I was looking for goal setting apps is
goal tracking apps.
Goal tracking apps is an app called Headway. And really it's not for me to go in and make specific goals and track those goals. It's helps you set little micro learning goals. And so, I mean, how many of us, have recognized at some point in our life that we spend too much time on our own little personal device?
Right.
98% of us. And so this app, it was really interesting to me because you can, it breaks it down so tangibly that you can set just a 5-minute goal a day of these little micro learnings. So, you do a little questionnaire to find out what areas of life you would like to micro learn in, right? And so for one example would be, I teach a parenting class and it's based, this 2-hour micro parenting class is based on 3 books that I've read and studied and pulled out the most important applicable things to give it to people in a 90-minute parenting class, right? For the hopes that they'll go in and read the whole books themselves. But some people get enough life-changing knowledge from that little 90-minute class that I do to really bump up their skills in parenting that they don't. I mean, everybody should go and read the books, but if they don't, they still got so much from that class to implement into their lives to be better parents, more intentional parents, right? And so that's what this little headspace is these micro learning sessions of one book that I really wanted to have been wanting to read, right? I have this stack of books that I'm trying to get through, but to read them start to finish is impossible in my line of work, in my life right now. And so getting a little micro boost of 7 Habits for Highly Effective People type books, right? Really great books, really great stuff in it, just a little bit each day, right? And you can set these small goals, 5 minutes a day. And what my understanding is you can choose if you want to do it first thing in the morning, last thing before you go to bed, or during your commute. So when I when my phone goes in drive mode, it pops up and says, hey, is this when you want to do your, and I'm like, heck yeah, when I wouldn't really think of that on my own. I'm like, yes, I have a 18-minute commute to my Federal Way office. Heck yeah, I'm going to do a 10-minute micro session right now on my way. Really cool. So I'm going to get started on this. I'm very app illiterate. So I have to learn how, there is a free trial, but I know that I'm going to want to do this. So I'm doing the free trial and I have to figure out how to log in. Anyways, I'm excited to try it and report back to you guys how it goes.
Yes. So these little micro learnings, I've seen them before where they're trying to help you overcome the doom scrolling that you get into. There's other ones out there. I think like Mind Bloom is one of them that I looked at before. So I've looked at these. These are great. And so this is what microlearning is. The actual definition says, at its core, microlearning is about understanding how our memory works and using that knowledge to increase learning effectiveness. The principles behind microlearning rests on the forgetting curve, the concept introduced by the German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus. He discovered that the brain Ebbinghaus. He discovered that the brain tends to forget information over time, with the sharpest decline occurring the first 24 hours. But when it's microlearning, it can help it. It provides a small piece of content that can be quickly learned and repeated, thus enhancing the knowledge of retention. So it's not that you're just learning these small little bits, but you're learning it in a way that your brain will comprehend and then retain the information.
That's good.
So that's the problem that I have sometimes when I read a book. I will get into it and I will just burn through the whole thing. That's why I take a copious amount of notes so I can go back through. That's why when our pastor is up there and he gives a sermon, I'm taking notes because I go back and look at those key points that I thought were important. It's really, really valuable for me. And so with micro learning, it's not that you're just taking in small bits, but they're doing it structured in a way that your brain's actually going to retain this information, take it from your instant memory to your short term to your long term. And that's the real goal, is to get it from short term to long term. So your brain just doesn't, discharge this information and say, oh, we don't need it anymore.
Yeah. That's really great.
So yes, the micro learning is really cool. I understand the concept behind it. So it's going to be neat to see you go through this and see what your experience is. And then maybe I will start asking you these cards.
No.
All right. So we've covered our new advancement, which is the micro learning, which I think is really cool. And then I'm going to continue working my goal setting app just to get through the goal that I set for the month, is to use this one app and just see how it goes. All right. So our tool for the toolbox is backwards goal setting, which is where you start with your end goal and then you work backwards, putting these smaller steps in place so you can make sure that you get to where you want to go. Now, a lot of times people do it the other way, where they start here with these small goals, trying to move forward, but it's really easy to get lost. So you got to know where you're going. How I learned this in the military,
the Marines.
In the Marines, right? Because I guess the Army doesn't do backward planning.
Maybe they do. I just don't remember.
So perfect example of backward planning is there's supposed to be a company formation at 08 in the morning. So then your company commander will say, okay, I want everybody there at 0745. That's what the company commander, the next level down, says 0745. The next level down is your platoon sergeant. He wants everybody there at 0730. So 7:30. And then your squad leader says, I want everybody there at 7:15. To make sure that everybody shows up on time, they keep moving the goal backwards into these smaller goals. So that way by 08, everybody is there. Nobody is running late, right, for formation. But let's continue with that example of 0745. So if you know it takes you at 08, you need to be there, but your squad leader says 0715, you need to show up. So 0715, you know it takes you 15 minutes to get from the barracks where you're sleeping to the formation grounds. So you need to leave the barracks at 07. You know, it takes you 30 minutes to get up and do all your hygiene, which means you need to wake up at 0630. But you like to get a cup of coffee in the morning, so it takes an extra 10 minutes. So you add an extra 10 minutes onto that. So 0620, you need to be making sure that you're up, your alarm set for 620 to make sure that you're ready for a 08 formation. That's how that backwards planning goes. All these steps that move your timeline backwards, so that way you know what time to start for your goal.
Yeah.
Now we can take that same concept from the military and use it for goals that we set in our life. So we will use that same backwards planning for the goals that we set for the show. And so I will go with my goal first, and then I will ask you, or do you want to go first and then I'll go second? How do you want to do it? Yours is going to be a little bit more difficult.
He tells me to stop saying, no, just kidding.
All right. So if you wanted to do, we'll just do it this way, Jess.
Well, let's give one more example.
Okay, go ahead.
We're just going to give one more example because not everybody can relate to military and time, right? One example would be if your end goal is to run a marathon, okay, in 6 months.
Who wants to do that?
Right. And so that's why I'm using this as an example for all those overachievers out there. Okay. So the milestones are going to be run 5 miles, run 10 miles, run 15, right? Those are milestones to do that backwards goal. Okay. The steps are develop a training schedule, gradually increase running distance, and then incorporate cross training and monitor your process. So your backwards goal setting for that would be like, what is a marathon? 27 miles?
I've never run one. Don't ask me.
Casey?
I'm this short, fat, bald guy.
26 miles, right? And so your backwards setting goal would be like, okay, 26 is the end goal. Probably, I don't know. I'd have to work with a specialist with this, but let's say 20, 15, 10, 5, 2. 1, 2. So we're backwards setting there. And so we know, okay, my first goal is to just run a mile. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to develop a training schedule to gradually increase that running. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right.
50% of Americans say that they or a loved one have suffered from mental health crisis. Together, we can change all that. Introducing Q Actual, a revolutionary new peer-to-peer based mobile application. Personalized to fit your lifestyle, with pinpoint GPS location in times of emergency. Connecting you to your care provider. With Q Actual, we will move you forward. Download Q Actual now and visit qactual.com.
Okay, so let's start with we're both going to do this backwards goal for our goals we set last week.
Yes.
Okay.
So yours is a little bit more difficult because your goal was smaller. So then we get into like fractions and decimals. So I'm going to.
Why is my goal smaller?
Because you said it's smaller. I don't know. You said 10. You said 10 engagements in 6 months, and I stretched you to say 17. But even at 17 engagements in 6 months is still too small because just for the math. Otherwise, you're going to have to do like 0.4 per week, right? So,
but I don't have any yet.
That's okay.
So that's not too small a goal.
So we're going to say 24 just for math's sake.
24?
24 in 6 months.
You really need to keep working on that female language.
Just because the math makes sense this way. Okay. Otherwise, the math doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So let's say that your goal is 24. I know 24. Your goal is 10.
Okay.
But let's say it was 24 in 6 months.
Okay.
So if that's your goal is to have 24 engagements in 6 months, if you broke that down per month, how many engagements would you have to have per month to hit that 24?
4? I don't know. I'm terrible at math.
So yes, 4 engagements.
4 really? Engagements, I did that right? Wow.
So you would need 4 engagements
per month.
Right. So
starting January?
Starting right now, every month you would need to hit 4 engagements. 6 times 4 is 24 to hit 24 engagements.
Okay.
By the goal, right?
Okay.
Or by June.
Okay.
So now we know your monthly goal is...
So 1 per episode.
So then 1 per year. Yeah, absolutely. So 1 per. So how many per week do you need to have? How many engagements?
1.
1 engagement per week will get you to your goal.
Your goal. Yeah.
Well, to the goal. Okay. So one, you need 1 engagement per week.
Okay.
Great. So now we have our structure. Which was the goal. And then the routine, we know now every week you need to have an engagement.
Okay. And so maybe my goal could be to ask.
So okay. So this is where we're going to get into it. What are some things you can do to ensure that you hit that weekly goal? Okay. So to recap, the goal is 24 in 6 months. You need 4 of them a month, 4 engagements per month, which means 1 engagement per week. So what are some things that you can do to ensure that you get engagement every week? So basically every episode you need 1 engagement. What are some things that you could do?
Yeah. Well, as I'm thinking, maybe I could offer a coupon for one of my like 6 to 8 course online classes.
So you could offer some sort of financial incentive for people to comment as a reduction in your course.
Sure.
So some sort of incentive.
Or like an incentive, like, hey, if you send an email, or because I don't necessarily need it to be public. An email or a comment on how maybe one of the episodes specifically helped you in a specific way, then you'll be added to, your name will be put into the pot to be drawn.
Oh, so
once a month.
No, maybe not once a month. Maybe when you hit your goal, like everybody who comments or
to have a complimentary 8-week group counseling session, because I do group counseling sessions for maladaptive coping skills. I do group counseling sessions for rejection,
maladaptive coping skill, which are things that you're doing that are not helpful to your life.
So coping skills are how we deal with stress, and most of us have negative coping skills that we like drinking or shopping or smoking crack. I don't know.
So
gambling.
So offering an incentive. What are some other things that you could do? How would you drive engagement for an episode?
Okay. How would I draw engagement for an episode? Well, share it more.
You could share it more. That's a great idea.
Okay, so I should write these micro goals.
Okay. Share it.
Okay, so incentive.
So how many shares of the episode could you do in a week?
3.
3 shares a week? Okay, so write 3 shares a week.
3 shares episode a week. Okay.
What else could you do?
I could, I'm trying to do this ethically.
So it is, so think about this. It is social media, right? So what's the social part of it? Because right now we're just putting out an episode, but to be social means there has to be interaction. So have you considered anytime somebody comments anything,
engage with them?
Yeah. Anytime that anyone comments anything on the episode, whether they give you the response you're looking for or not, you could just engage with them to make it more of that personal social feel.
Engage socially with comments.
Socially with comments.
Okay.
Yeah. What else could you do? Are there any groups that you're part of on social media that you know the people in it personally that you're part of?
Yeah.
Have you considered sharing it with them?
No, but now I have. Okay, share with my private.
With your groups, yeah. Like I know you're part of different church groups and counseling groups and things like that.
Okay.
So just sharing it out there and saying, hey, I'm producing this content to help people. If you think it's valuable, ask them to share it out as well.
Okay.
To drive that engagement.
Yeah, those are really good.
All right. So that is that backwards goal setting where we talked about the timeline, 6 months, 24. And then you reduce that down to 1 per month, you need 4. And then you reduce that down to every week, you need 1 engagement. So that's great. You know the structure and that's the routine. But now the discipline comes in with these little things that you're going to do, which are to offer an incentive, to share the episode at least 3 times per week, to engage with everybody socially that comments, and then to share it with these smaller groups of people that you know and trust.
Yeah.
Right. So that's backwards goal setting. So that's for your medium goal. We talked about long-term goal, which we went over last week. Your long-term goal we went over last week. Now we talked about the medium goal, which is how to break that down into the monthly and weekly. And we started to talk a little bit about these things that we can do. So next week, when we talk about the short-term goals, we're going to talk about these 4 things that you just discussed and what do we do every single day, making these part of our daily routine.
Yeah, that's good.
Every single day. So you're not getting to the end of the week and being like, oh my gosh, I didn't do any of this. I'm trying to cram it all in last minute, right? Which
like setting reminders on my phone to share the episode.
That's
3 times that week. Hey, don't forget to share this episode. Okay.
That's right.
Cool.
Just little things you can do every day because that's the discipline.
Yep.
You know, games are won and lost by the discipline of the player. And so the more disciplined you are with this, the more success you're going to find.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time that in business, in social media, in basketball, whatever you're trying to be better at, consistency plus time will give you success. So if you're consistently doing these things over a long period of time, you're going to find success. Yeah. And Shaquille O'Neal is a great example of that. He was terrible at shooting free throws. Awful. Like people would just foul him out because they knew he wasn't going to hit those buckets. So he spent a tremendous amount of time in the off season doing this structure right here, where he would shoot, I forget how many it was. I want to say it was like 100 free throws a day. And he did it every single day. And eventually he started getting better and better and better. And when he'd come back season after season doing this, people realized like, I can't just foul this guy out anymore because he's starting to hit these buckets. So they had to change it up.
There is always an exception to the rule. If my dad is watching, he's thinking of this. I, in middle school, played basketball, and I'm so good at defense. I'm quick. I stole the ball all the time, and I'm really fast. So I'd be the first one down, and I would bank that layup every time. Terrible. I would miss it every time. So my dad would take me after practice and make me do 100 layups every day after practice, and I still sucked.
Did you improve at all?
No. So the coach started picking up on it, and he was like, okay, he got the best player on our team to always be anticipating the steal. So I had the most assists in the league that year.
So but that's still a win. That's
I guess so.
That's called a pivot.
Yeah, a pivot.
That's a
I think
pivot.
of Ross.
Pivot. No, it's called a pivot. There's a book called The Art of the Pivot.
Okay.
Where it's like, hey, I'm doing this. It's not working. So what can I put in place or change that will still help me?
It's a great example of that.
Yeah, help me achieve my goal. The goal was to win, right? It's to get more points on the board. And so instead of you throwing the brick, right, you would steal the ball and then pass it off to somebody else who could make it. That's another great book. It's not how, but who.
Yeah.
Right? It's not how to make the layup. It's who can you give it to that's already working and having success in that space. So that's still a win.
She led Katie, her name was Katie Fulden back then, now Katie Bullnell. She led the league that year in points, and I led the league that year in assists.
See? And it's a win.
Yeah.
It's still a win.
Except for all those lost hours practicing my layups.
No, but say here's the thing though. You had to go through that process to realize like there's somebody better that can do this piece. And so let me find them and put them in place. I could probably set up this podcast and muddle through it, but why? I got a guy, Casey, who's been doing podcasts for a long time and he's been doing a killer job at it. Sure, I could set it up, figure it out, edit it, do all that stuff, make a ton of mistakes and get zero traction, or I can just find the guy who's already doing it and bring him onto the team. Yeah. See? Perfect.
Perfect.
All right.
The pivot.
So we will talk about how do we set that daily routine. We'll talk about that in the short-term goals
next week.
Okay. Next week. All right. So we've gone over a ton of stuff for you guys. We talked about how your mental health could be affected by these huge natural disasters that are happening right now. And so talk to your friends about it, get some professional help if that's what you need, but don't hold it all inside. You're not alone. Lots of people are dealing with this right now. We've also talked about some practical tools you can use in your toolbox. We've talked about some advanced technology that can help you when it comes to microlearning and to goal setting. So as always, our goal at the Mental Health Janitors is to educate you, encourage you, and empower you on your mental health journey. And so for the Mental Health Janitors, I'm Sgt Q.
And I'm Doc Jess, and we're out.